started recording of the meeting, and we have people coming in from the link that I gave them that was the wrong link. And we appreciate whoever it was that figured out that I had done that and dragged all of our participants back into the correct meeting. But welcome to the September meeting of the Microsoft Utah Users Group. We're super excited to have you with us. This is our first ever watch party. And as you can see from my camera, we have me and one other person.
Oh no, hi.
That are live at Journey Team, and we'd like to take the opportunity to thank Journey Team for giving us this space. This will be our home for the next few months while we figure out this new format. You're always welcome to join us here in person. It is bringing your own treats, but you're welcome to join us in person or online. And we have a number of people that have signed up to present to us over the next little bit. We are always looking for new topic ideas. So if there's something that you would like us to see if we can find a presenter for, let us know. Send an email to info@utahsharepoint.org and we will dial that up. Today we have David joining us from Poland. He's, what did we decide, 12 time zones away? So it's middle of the morning for David. And so we thank him for taking the time and making the sacrifice to stay up in the middle of his morning, early morning, to present to us. He's going to talk to us about Power Platform only for citizen developers. And we're going to focus really on that question mark at the end. And with that, I will say that I think that we want this to be interactive. And so if you have questions, type them into the chat and I will watch for that. Or just speak up and we'll screech to a halt and deal with your question. Or you can make a note and save them for the end. We will save time at the end for questions and answers as well. So with that lengthy introduction, David, you're on.
Okay, thank you very much. Hello, everyone. So let's start with a little bit more information from the perspective of the practical information. Like it was said, it is session for you. I see also the chat and the cameras. If you react, raise the hand or type the question, I will stop the presentation and I will try to answer, unless the answer will be in the later part of the presentation. But with such a small group, we can chat or discuss a little bit quicker. Then with the agenda, really simple, quick introduction, a couple of words about me, then I will try to answer why I decided to make this session, a couple of words about the terminology, and then I will jump to the project tools, which is the solution which was created. And based on that, I came with this idea that the Power Platform might be not only for the citizen developers. And after that, I will try to summarize everything what was said. So there is a high level of chance that you see my face for the first time. I'm Dawid Ziolkowski from Poland, and I'm in the IT for almost 12 years, though I didn't finish the IT studies. I finished the management. So it is really something with which I struggle quite a lot, but in the end of the day, it occurs that it is one of my powers, because thanks to management, I understand the clients, the business a little bit better. The icebreaker fact about me is that I'm still active breaker, b-boy, breakdancer. So you can see the results of this activity, especially on my head. And I am freshly awarded the MVP in the business application category. Okay, the goal for today for me, it is I will attempt to inspire you guys, give you the food for thoughts, share some hard lessons learned, which hopefully you will avoid thanks to that. And I will try to set the focus on the business value, because in the end of the day, it doesn't matter if we are the pro developers, citizen developers, Fusion developers. If we are not focusing on the business value, then there is no point in our activities. And lastly, I would like to have fun. And starting with this part of answering why I decide to speak about this, because there is constant need which is growing for the low-code solutions, for the Power Apps, for the Power Automate. And here I managed to capture a two sets of the information from the Microsoft web page. And as you can see, the numbers are changing. The return of investment is changing. It is in some sense dropping, but there is a increase in the reduction in the app development costs. And that is really important because the development of the application is costly. And with the rapid solutions, when we are decreasing the time and reducing the cost, this is really what is opening a lot of eyes. A lot of teams are changing the perspective when they see that and they can experience this. So except what Forrester is saying to us, I think there is also a lot of other reasons why the Power Platform is so important. For instance, there are the legacy systems like the Access, InfoPath. There are the ongoing on-premise migrations. There is a tons of the legacy applications, for instance, in the Outlook or other third-party systems, which are slowly moving forward to the cloud. Then the agile methodologies, the time of the delivery is really important, and make that big the users, because the users are in the center of everything. And something what I decide to add is, when you are a citizen developer or you are starting to build anything, I think it is a lot of fun. But we have some responsibility, and we need to remember about a couple of the principles, like who will be using the solution, what type of the business value we will generate, and what will be the implication of our decisions from the performance or the maintenance perspective. And this last thought from this slide is, just because you can doesn't mean you should. And this is something what I'm trying to repeat to myself, because I'm constantly tempted to do something, but in the longer term, I know that it can backfire me. Okay, so there is quite a lot of why I decide to speak about this topic, why it is important from a various perspectives and various angles. But to set up the tone, let's speak a little bit about the terminology. So I was trying to find a couple of the definitions of the citizen developer. So there is a first one. So the citizen developer is a user who is creating new business applications for consumption by other using development and runtime environment sanctioned by the corporate IT. So this is a person who is creating a new business applications, and they will be used by the others, but that is not a must. Any type of the applications which we are doing, or the automatizations to help only ourselves to simplify our life or to remove boring repetitive tasks, is making from us the citizen developers. If we are sharing that, then we are getting a little bit more recognition in the community, but we are still the citizen developer. What is really important, this IT part is really important, because without the IT, some operations, some activities cannot be performed correctly. The next one, the citizen developer is non-professional developer. And this is really cool statement, because if you are a citizen developer and you are building the applications, it doesn't mean that you are not the developer. It is that you are not professional with these tools. Okay, who builds the application for the use by the other people, although they do not report directly to the IT. They use the tools such as low-code platforms that are sanctioned by the IT. And again, the information about the IT sanction part is hitting hard here. And this reporting directly to the IT, I think it is changing slowly, that there is a better and better connection. There is like a second or other side of the coin that a lot of people were saying about the shadow IT. And I think in the corporate ITs which are aware about what is happening, there cannot be words about the shadow IT, because the shadow IT is in some sense lazy excuse to ignore what is happening in the organization. Okay, let's move forward. The web developer, and maybe I will not read everything what is here, but it is a programmer who is specializing in the development of any type of the solution. But what is really important, as we can see, that it is a programmer, so it is a person with the experience with the programming languages. And we don't need to focus on any specific language, but it is important that it is a professional. Okay. We have the citizen developer, we have the web developers in the scope, and we have also the Power Platform. So this is the location where everything is really happening. So the Power Platform, I know, guys, you know that for sure. The Power Platform are the 4 key services: Power Apps, Power Automate, Power BI, and Power Virtual Agents. Below all of that, there are these data connectors, AI bidders, and the storage. And I think this is one of the biggest things in the case of the Power Platform, this integration, the possibility to connect with the various other systems. With the modern workplaces, we are not using only the SAP, or we are not only using the MailChimp, or we are not using only the, I don't know, Twitter. With the Power Automate, with the data connectors, we can connect this various set of the information and, for instance, analyze that using the Power BI. But what is really important, this is all in the Power Platform, so the low-code, no-code, visual and hassle-free approach of the software development. So this is like this statement which is suggesting that it is really easy and fun. Okay, so we have some basics done. We know who is a citizen developer, we know who is a web developer, and we know what is a Power Platform. And now let's look into that through the perspective of the project tools. This is the solution which I will be showing to you guys by the major part of my session. And first of all, I would like to set up small background of this solution. Initially, that solution was on-premise. It was a SharePoint 2013, maximum 16. And there was a lot of Nintex workflows and forms incorporated in that. So initially, there was a really huge list with over, I think, 50 properties, maybe even more, with a lot of repeating sections, with at least 4 or 5 various workflows which were doing the synchronization of the information. And by that time, it was also the duplication of the information. There was also the old type of the form, so a lot of scrolling, hard to develop, not easy to maintain, all of the bits and pieces which is making this solution hard to develop further and hard to migrate to cloud. And if I'm speaking about the cloud, there was a various of the challenges because that migration happened over 2 years ago, maybe even a little bit longer, when everything was starting. So there was a lot of missing functions in comparison to what had the workflows from the Nintex and the Power Automate. So there were some gaps, and with that gaps, a lot of workarounds or different approaches needed to be developed in flight. So trying to develop it as it was really hard because there was this repeating data, the duplication of the information. So this is something what we should avoid as much as possible. There was no option to create a proper reporting with the previous data structure. And in the end, I was saying about the 4 or 5 Nintex workflows, but when they went to the cloud and they started to build the flows, they created 24 recurring flows based on a schedule, which were doing the synchronization every 10 minutes. So you can think how many hits it was for the whole engine of the Power Automate. Back then it was a flow. Okay, here I made an attempt of what was initially there. So there were some site collection with the project data. Maybe I will use this. Okay, there were some some project data with the details, issues, risk, and tasks, and all of that was stored in one huge form. Then, based on every project, the specific site for specific site collection was generated. So each project had own site to store the documents. But at the same time, all of the details, issues, risk, and the tasks from the initial location were synchronized to these subsites. So if somebody get the idea that they want to change the details in the project one, if they will do it only in the subsite, that information will create a mismatch because it is not automatically synchronizing into the main form. And that was one of the challenges of the architecture which was done on premise. To mitigate that and to remove really this data duplication, because I think that was creating a lot of mess, we developed the SharePoint framework web part, which was only displaying the information on a level of the subsites. So though the project sites were keeping the documentation, and that was okay, it was also displaying the data through the SharePoint framework web part. And thanks to that, all of the steps to move forward with the reporting or to extend that project tools further were much, much easier. Okay, that is for the introduction. Let's jump and let's see how that looks like. Okay, so this is the demo location, which I made the attempt to prepare. So there is not a lot of data, but I cannot share the customer production. First of all, the process was starting with the creation of the requirements brief. And as you can see here, I went really easy with this because this is a SharePoint form, which was only customized with a simple header and the sections. And this is like a first point which I want to make about thinking a little bit wider about the solution. So we don't need to always go with the Canvas applications. We don't need to always go with the customization of the forms. We can do it, but we need to think if that will generate any type of the value. And for the purpose of the demonstration and what the client wanted, this first form is really, really simple. So let's fill in some data. I really like this new experience of the metadata. Manage metadata. It looks quite okay. Okay, and let's go with this one. And of course, with what we have inside of the formatting of the SharePoint, we could hide or show part of the fields if we want to do so. Okay, I always miss one. Okay, and simply done. Now the requirement brief is created and the process of setup of this new project is starting in the background. When that is registered correctly, the PMO team, so this is for the simplification, the PMO team will see this application, and this application is basically a Power Apps Canvas application, which is starting with the list of the projects and with some easy small filters, which are helping to find the relevant information. Or maybe I will do it like that. And then for every project, we can go into and we can see a basic details about that project. And we can go into a project tools. So there is quite a lot of tools here. So for every project, we can go and we can, for instance, select the key milestones. So we will see the key milestones. We can comment the key milestones. We can set up the dates. We can go and check or set up the status. I think this is quite ugly. It was developed quite time ago. So let's try. As you can see, there is still huge room for the improvement. There are the tasks. Of course, there are the risks. And maybe I would change that to another one where was some data populated already. Okay, why you are so slow? Okay, so this is in some sense going back to the statement that the performance of the applications is really important. Okay, yeah. So here we have some issues, and all of that is allowing to manage the project according the idea from our client. The key of that are the gates. So basically, this is something what is happening inside of the lifecycle of the project. Every gate means that some requirements, some activities should be performed, so project can move forward. And every request of that gate, please, next, will be approved, and the PMO team will get the notification that they should take the action and either approve it or reject it. So this is all built inside of the application. And thanks to that, users have one environment in which they can work. What is also quite important, if you notice here, this list is starting currently from the project log. But if I will go to this one, the list is starting with the project summary. And the project summary is basically generated for the project which are mature enough, and they can move to another gate, to another stage. And this is the separate subsite created for that project. So again, we can store here the documentation, and we can work with the project tools. Something what I was unfortunately unable to prepare fully for today was one more bit. This is what I mentioned. This is the SharePoint framework web part, but I have here a previous version of this SharePoint framework, and the data are not populated as they should. But every project also had this like a details pane where the information were taken from this main list. So like I was saying initially, there was no duplication of the data, only the display. So some managers, if they were working only with a specific project, at the same time they had the access to most relevant information about the status of their projects. And that was done thanks to quite simple, let's move away from here, leave. And that was done quite thanks to quite simple SharePoint framework installed on the end of the app catalog from in the tenant of the client. Okay, I think this is the basic setup of this solution. Do you have, guys, maybe any questions at this stage? One, two, three, not yet. Okay.
Okay.
Yes.
David?
Hey.
People online have.
Yeah, Paul, I'm listening.
Yeah, we heard somebody else for a little bit there, but I'm wondering how you got the landscape Power App as the default form for the list.
Okay, so about this one, this is the question.
Yes.
Okay, so this is an old school trick that if you have the list, then you can add this new form, and I think it was the edit form and view or detail form, which will redirect you to a proper form. And I noticed that it is still working for our new forms where you don't need to provide the context of the item with which you are interacting. So it was like a simple and quick solution based on the experience with the previous versions of the SharePoint. And what is really nice, it is also responsive, so it will scale to the screen from the user. And the maintenance is really super easy because if you will go to your list, then what you just need to do is to configure the layout, and either you are playing with the JSON and creating new sections, or you are just editing the columns. And as you can see here, there are the sections, so I can quite easily adjust what I have inside of my form with only a couple of clicks. And now this new form will be reorganized after refreshing this. So yeah, quite old school, but easy to do. It is just if you will add this new form, and you will see that.
Oh, and then when you edit it, that's when you got the choice for which columns.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, anything else, guys? Or we are jumping a little bit deeper? Okay, and now I will move slowly to this scarier part for some people, and stop me if I will go too deep. First of all, like I was saying, the initial form was huge, and by huge, I can show you the previous version of this form with really almost no formatting. So you can see how many fields are here. And that was before all of the changes, all of the extensions which we made for this solution. So there is 2, 4, 6, 8. Yeah, over the 10, let's say. Over the 10 lists, which are, I don't want to say like they are working like a database, because some people will kill me for that. SharePoint list is not a database, and we need to repeat that constantly. But with a simple trick in mind, if we will create a connection between our main source of the information and our supporting information through the unique ID in the Power Apps, it is super easy to extract that information. So if I have the identifier, if I have the ID, which is connecting the main data with the supporting data, in the Power Apps, it is super easy to separate that and show proper information. So I'm not limited by the amount of the columns which I have in my form. I'm only limited by the proper approach, how to develop that further. And of course, not to go over some limits, because with the SharePoint, it is really not easy to manage that type of the activities. But simply, if we will keep in mind this basic principle that we have the ID, which is connecting our main and supporting information, we can achieve a lot. And this is the key thought which was done for these tools. So what I'm doing here, when I will be clicking any item in this tool, what is happening? The context of this particular item is loaded for me in various screens. So if I go here to the, I don't know, key milestones, for instance, then I have, first of all, the gallery where I am filtering the list based on my ID. So if I know that ID, I can connect to a various list and I can display that in the context of a single project without a lot of problems and without worrying about the delegation, which is sometimes the problem. And of course, if I will use the onSelect, I can use the default form, for instance, or I can develop my form by myself, and I can work in the context of a specific item. So maybe I will just mute the, yeah, okay. I muted the meeting room. Was receiving some feedback. Okay, so if I have the tasks, for instance, I can again apply the same idea that by the pointing to a selected item in the gallery, I will be working in the context of that specific item. So this is really simple and easy. If we have the ID, we can connect our information. And this is almost through all of the tools from the project tools, which you see, the same approach was done to maintain the same user experience. Okay, and what is happening under the hood? And here we are getting even deeper. There is a couple of the processes. First one is just to generate a new project item. And here are happening a couple of the interesting things like generating of the new ID. I today noticed that the approach which was working for some time is no longer valid. But that was simply done to generate the leading zeros before the ID of the project. So I'm not sure if a lot of people are using the do until. I really love this loop, and I'm using it quite a lot because you can also create the try catch patterns, which are allowing you to, in some sense, self-repair the execution of the Power Automate. So we can, for instance, have a block of the code in the scope, and with the try catch pattern, we can catch that and repeat our process if something went wrong. Next, there is a section where I show the learning, because we can either use loop to connect the string and to capture all of the people which were selected as the required stakeholders, or we can take a little bit different approach and achieve exactly the same result with the select and join. This is really interesting technique, and you can find it at my blog. The key idea behind it is the speed and the performance and the number of the hits. Because if you imagine that you have a really huge array to check, there is, for instance, over 100 items, it will take a couple of the seconds and it will go through the API hits every time when it is iterating. Where with the select and the join, it will take 1 or 2 seconds without the additional API calls. This part is simple. We are creating the new item. Again, you can see how many properties are here, and I will show the way how you can mitigate that during the updates. And simply we are sending the email. Nothing fancy here. But if we are starting move between the gates, and I would like to show you that before explaining the whole process. So let's try if the newest one was generated or it failed along the lines. Oh, come on. Okay, yeah, I have it here. I need to provide my name here. Yeah. And at the same time, I will give you a really quick and nice tip. If you are having the troubles with the migration of the solutions, and something is not connecting with your data, if you are doing that, simply go to a specific card, if you are using, of course, the form, and just if it is not customized, you can change the type. And if you will change the type of the control, it will in some sense synchronize again with the data source, and your control should start to work again. So this is really useful when you are migrating or moving between the environments. Additional tip, it is here that the drop-downs have this really nice property, allow empty selection, and that will make the drop-down not to default to the first value in your array, in your selection. With that, your users don't see this option to pop up at the very beginning. This is sometimes hard to remove for the users which are starting the journey. Okay, filling the data one more time, and that should be it. And let's go to this GET request. We'll of course get the information, but I would like to approve it now and to kick off the process and to explain what is happening. Okay, and I started the process, which have a couple of the versions, and currently I am using this V3, if I am not mistaken, but I would like to show you the previous version. So the previous version of this solution was doing quite interesting thing, because it was calling the HTTP trigger and starting another flow. It was done like that because we wanted to change the context of the user. And if you are familiar with the Power Apps, you know that the instant type, so for instance, the Power Apps trigger, are working in the context of the user who started that process. And that was really hard for us to mitigate that. And initially it was the HTTP request, but there are the other ways how you can change the context of the user. With the generation 2 of the Power Apps trigger, there is the V2 of the Power Apps trigger. You are not only getting a nice option to add the inputs, but also you can change the context of the user by using the run only users. So you can say that it will run in the connection of the administrator who prepared the solution. With that, the user context can be lost, and that is sometimes a very useful technique. But as you can see, I had some problems with the migration of the solution. Yet I will show you what is happening here in this third version. So basically, we are calling here the HTTP request, but from the SharePoint REST API endpoint, which is creating for us the sub-site. There is the other method also, which is allowing to create a modern site collections, but it have a different endpoint. And it is allowing also to apply the site template, known as also as the site design previously. And the apply of the site design is happening here. Wow. Okay, so this is what is happening under the hood of this solution. And just to not spoil totally the fun, this is how the display of the SharePoint framework web part looks like. So there is a couple of the functions which are responsible for the creation of the content in flight based on the URL of the site where they are embedded. Additionally to that, that is the way how you can create a site script. So there is the definition, you need to get the ID, and then you can apply that site design for your site collections. From the perspective of the PowerShell, it is looking really really similar. Let me find the proper window. Yeah, okay. So this is, for instance, the definition of the new term in your organization, all of the colors, the site script, activation, and the creation of the site script. So this is still really, at least for me, it is quite technical stuff to happen to have the final result that the site will be created for you. I hope that everything worked fine. So as you can see here, the new site was generated. I see that something is off with the site design, but the final product should looks like this. If I will refresh it, it should be more pink. Okay, guys. So I think that was it from the demonstration perspective. Here are the capture of this SharePoint framework when it is working and displaying the data correctly. A friendly reminder about it. And here I also added the information that if you dislike this really long list of the properties, you can use a simple trick to change the site address to be a variable. And then you can, through the JSON and through a proper formatting, you can update, for instance, only a single property. Okay, I will leave that part. And let's jump to a quick summary. So I think that Power Platform makes our life easier, and it is allowing us to deliver the faster and more. We can have fun, we can be more creative. It is resolving the problems and add the value for us and for the users. This is like a reference to the fact that the project tools, in comparison to the Nintex version, were strongly developed. And the whole team, the whole PMO team, were really super excited with this solution. And over the first weeks when it was introduced, the usage of it, it was just huge. We were checking the statistics from the SharePoint sites and the user activities, and literally every day the team was using it. And part of the communication, which was done through the emails, was lost in favor to the project tools. But though it is all beneficial, it is also requiring the architecture. It is a real development, because even if we are doing the development in the low code, no code, we are developers in that. So we don't need to be scared with that word. But it also needs best practices. And as you saw, some elements of this solution, I didn't want to go even deeper into that solution, but I know that the performance is really bad in this case. The forms are not done in the best possible way. And in the longer term, I think based also on this definition of the citizen developers, the Power Platform, the citizen developers cannot survive without the governance. And now I have the question to you guys. After seeing all of that and after getting all of this information, but do you still think that Power Platform is only for the citizen developers?
No, this was awesome.
Yeah. So guys, if
So the question that I have, David, is as you've delivered this, I think that it's clear that you've delivered it faster than you would have if you were writing it from the ground up as custom code. Are the end users super excited to get it? And are they asking for even more than you ever thought they would?
Yeah, there is. To be honest, it is not even V2, but it is almost V3. So we have in the newest version, but I was unable to deploy that, unfortunately. But in newest version, we have also the reporting, which is of course based on the Power BI. We also have the connection with the Microsoft Teams, because part of the project started to live in the Teams. And we also have the connection with the Microsoft Graph to elevate the project site which were created to become a standalone team sites. So there is a lot what happened in these 2 years with this solution, and it is no longer the same. And from the performance perspective and the maintenance, I'm thinking that we are really close to moving to the model-driven applications, or to at least promote this solution to be embedded inside of the teams.
Yeah, I was going to ask about. I was going to ask about the performance in the olden days, back when Kip was young, so a long time ago. We would do things in a rapid application development tool. We would do it in Visual Basic or something, and prove the concept out, and then we go build it in a real framework. And I think what you're telling us is that you've used a rapid application development framework, and then you've gone live in that. You haven't had to rebuild it using something else. Is that true?
Yeah, because in many cases where I am doing something like I was showing to you guys this SharePoint form, I'm trying to start to deliver something quick and easy as the POC MVP type approach. And then we are getting the feedback, more requirements from the customers. We can definitely, thanks to that, also work better with the prioritization and with, the mask, or what is a must, what is a should, what is a could. So the faster we will deliver something, the faster we'll show users to play with that, the easier is our life moving forward, because we didn't build that in a classic way. Part of the tools were delivered after the rollout to the production. So initially there was a shorter list of the tools, and let me just jump to that application for a second, just to not lie to you, that the first set of the applications were excluding the RGA status. The tasks were not included. I think the lesson learned also were not in place. At least this couple of the features were not initially in place, but based on the feedback, we were iterating and adding more and more to that. But going to this main question, as it is successful and organization is growing and more people is using that, because of the poor performance and some bad queries, it is requiring a refactoring or moving to a different platform, because this is something what we need to be aware that doing the architecture, we are taking the responsibility and we need to say stop at some point. So if the better option will be a model-driven application or the custom application, we need to have this courage that this is like the the limit of the platform, and not wait for the users to complain that it is slow or bad.
Yep. Any questions from anybody online? If you're asking a question and you're on mute, we can't hear you.
I don't know if I just missed this or not, but you showed us kind of near the end some PowerShell that you were using to apply the theming. Is that PowerShell being run from Power Automate, or from what exactly is calling that and running that?
Yeah, so the connection with what I was showing to you in the PowerShell is that you can apply the site design using the Power Automate.
Okay, so you're doing that via HTTP call, not actually running PowerShell script.
Yeah, so there are the options how you can register a new site design as a site template using the Power Automate. But with this exercise, I wanted to show you the additional tools which you also need to know to achieve some results. Of course, for some people, the PowerShell will be the first place to go, and the Power Automate may be the last one, but it is still possible to do to get the same results.
Okay, that makes sense.
Anybody else that wants to speak that's figured out how to work their mute button?
Yeah, and maybe I will add one more bit, because here I was focusing on the technical aspect. But in my summary, when I was writing that, there was a lot of questions. So, and the same topic can be approached from various angles. And like I was saying about this shadow IT and the governance, I think this is also something what is even more important than the perspective of a single solution, because imagine that everyone in the organization is creating something similar, and there is no visibility of such a solutions, and we are just wasting our time trying to resolve some challenges where our colleagues from another department or a different business group already resolved that problems. So, you know, the governance, in my opinion, is not only like this law, policy, and regulations. It can also help with the reusability or with the citizen developers, because we are putting a really strong pressure on the teaching people how to use these tools, how to use them in a correct way, and this is also part of our governance. But
That's
maybe
awesome.
I'm just drifting away.
Well, I appreciate you coming to spend an hour with us, especially in the middle of your morning at 3 o'clock in the morning there. It was wonderful. And I thank you for your preparation and your willingness to come and spend an hour when you should be asleep with us. We will post this recording on YouTube, and I'll send a note out to the entirety of our users group so that they can go watch it at their own convenience. And if you want to stay up again next month, you're welcome to join us. I don't yet know what the topic will be, but it'll be fun and exciting. And to everyone else that showed up, I apologize for missing that one link in the invite. I use a copy every month of the previous month's invite. And so those of you that were in June for a minute, I apologize, and I'm glad that you found us here. And when we do our next meeting in October, I'll make sure that I change all of the links to be the appropriate meeting. Any last words?
Or at least this month's link. So we'll just
Yeah,
closer.
we'll get you 30 days closer. Everyone, come back to us in October and bring a friend. Bye, y'all.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks a lot. Thanks, David.
Thank you. Not sure if you are still staying for a couple of minutes more, or everyone are running away.
We're still here.